everybody. Darren J, what up? Zeus, what up? Tata, what up? Triple M star in the house, what up? Robbie, what up? Is that Robbie? Robbie? What up, man? Shadows 85. Hazen, what up? Good to see everybody. Thank you guys for everybody that hit the like button on their way in. Crypto Rick and retweeted the link. It is now going to be pinned at the top. So thank you guys, big time. Let's dive into it, guys.
To take a tour, and we're used to doing that as members of Congress. We're used to touring facilities, and it's never been a problem. As a matter of fact, normally we're welcome. But we were denied entrance by Deputy Warden Landerkin multiple times. As a matter of fact, she'd locked us out before, and it was clear that there was a lot to hide. Right now, what we have happening in America is a two-tier justice system. Let's all take a little trip down memory lane, shall we? In the summer of 2020, there has been an estimated number somewhere around 7,750 to over 10,000 BLM demonstrations. According to the press, approximately 6% of them were violent. That's 570 riots if you do the math there. But here's the deal, there was only one riot that took place here in Congress at the Capitol on January 6th, but what we have seen unfold has been unbelievable. It is a two-tier justice system. So we know that approximately 90% and more of Antifa BLM rioters have been released from jail. Their charges have been dropped. We know that in cities across America, there have been over $2 billion in damage, but here at the Capitol on January 6th, it's approximately $1.5 million. There's a clear difference. But yet we have a January 6th committee that Nancy Pelosi is leading that is nothing but a political witch hunt on Republicans and Trump supporters all across America and anyone that was at the Capitol on January 6th. What's happening to these people being held in custody is wrong. It's unconstitutional. It's a violation of their rights. And it is an abuse that I call on every single member of Congress to start paying attention to. We need investigations. It's outrageous. The American people are purely upset, disgusted, and cannot believe this is happening in our country. And I think all of us should be appalled. You see, this jail in Washington, D.C. has been known. It's had many reports of being a despicable place as early as 1976. U.S. District Court Judge William Bryant ruled the conditions inside the jail violated the 8th Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. In 2015, a report filed showed the jail was plagued by mold, vermin, and water leaks. 2016, the jail had to move 200 inmates because of excessive heat. In November 2021, the Marshal Service found the CDF to be inhospitable, but yet people are still being housed there. But the January 6th defendants are being treated differently on a whole nother level. They have been beaten by the guards. They are called white supremacists. They are denied religious services, haircuts, shaving, the ability to trim their fingernails. There's more outrageous things happening there. They're denied time with their attorneys. They are denied the ability to even see their families and have their families visit there. They are denied bail and being held there without bail. Many of these people have never been charged for a crime before. Some of them are veterans, and the treatment is unbelievable. They are told they have to denounce President Trump. They are told that their views are the views of cult members, even though these are men that every single night at 9 o'clock at night, they put their hand over their heart and sing the national anthem voluntarily. Imagine a group of men being held in jail with no idea of when they're going to go to court, no ability to bail out, no ability to see their family, being mistreated and abused worse than we treat terrorists at Gitmo. Yet they have their hand over their heart every night at 9 o'clock and sing the national anthem. That's something I don't think any of us can fathom. While they're being persecuted by the very government that has the American flag over our buildings. This is completely wrong. Whether we agree, disagree, and I can tell you right now, I completely disagree, and am very against the violence that happened on January 6th at the Capitol. We should all disagree with how these people are being treated. This is completely unacceptable. And as Americans, this should go beyond political boundaries, and we should all come together and declare that this is wrong and call for it to stop. We never want to have those in power to be able to weld their power against people they politically disagree with, especially in a time where we saw political riots all over the country, and the people that committed those riots, not only most of them have been let off of their charges, but many of them were never mistreated like this. I also want to explain something to you all. The Democrat platform, Act Blue, raised money for BLM, a lot of money. And BLM brought in millions and millions of dollars. But it was BLM violence and riots that were out of control. Many of these were peaceful demonstrations, but the riots that got out of control, those were assaults and violence on private property and private citizens. But yet here we see nothing day in and everything, day in and day out in the news. It's all about the Capitol riot. Congress only cares about itself. It clearly demonstrates to the American people. It does not care about your business that got burned down. It doesn't care about the job you lost. Congress doesn't care about your city or community that was devastated by violence. They don't care about you taxpayers that have to pay to fix and mend, and they don't care about the person that assaulted you, looted your store, or hurt you in this violence. They don't care about any of that. They only care about themselves, and they're willing to use the Department of Justice, the FBI, the prisons, the jails, the guards, and any means possible to make sure that you never mess with them again. This is wrong. It's unusually cruel. Now I'd like to hand over this time to Congressman Gohmert. Congressman Gohmert was the other only member of Congress that was able to tour the jail with me that day, because I was only given a little over 15 minutes notice in time to get there that I was going to be allowed to get in. So at this time, I'd like for you to hear from Congressman Gohmert. Thank you.
Thank you. Marjorie, thank you for your work, your efforts. There's no better contrast between what happened in the summer of 2020 and what happened January 6th than the issue of bail. We hear from many people that participated in destroying federal buildings, police buildings, looting, then that they had no bail, so they were immediately allowed to be released. And yet, we got people in the DC jail who had no bail, meaning they can't get out. Now, on the state side, having been a felony judge, you had to have done something incredibly extreme to have bail so high that you could not make it. Especially a no bail situation. It's just so extremely rare. But to have that kind of dichotomy here in the nation's capital is pretty outrageous. We know, for those that are still taught any type of civics, of government, you know that under our system, you are innocent until proven guilty. And the law and the Constitution have made very clear you're not to punish anyone who's in pretrial confinement. Pretrial confinement is not a place for punishment. That can only come after conviction. And yet here what we've seen in the DC jail amounts to a great deal of punishment. And to be clear, it's not just the inmates that have suffered. As Marjorie and I toured the DC jail, some of the conditions were so astounding. I've asked more than one guard, have you ever worked in a facility that had these kind of problems? And quietly they would say, never, no. It is outrageous. Now, there's some that say, oh, it's just because you've not been in jails or prison, you don't know, this is what it's like. No, those people that said that have not witnessed what's been going on in the DC jail. First, we have heard repeatedly since January 6th, this was an armed insurrection. And as I asked Merrick Garland, and I've asked others, you know, is there anybody been charged with insurrection? And the answer is actually no. No one has been charged with insurrection. In fact, if they were going to charge with someone with insurrection, it's beginning to sound more and more like those would be agents for the federal government that were there stirring things up, trying to get people to engage in violence. And as we heard this weekend, apparently a guy that was giving out what were later used are called dangerous weapons may well himself have been working for the federal government, for the FBI, as he was handing out what they now charge were deadly weapons. So we've got a lot more investigating to do. The condition of solitary confinement has been so often struck down as inappropriate, and yet the DC jail has gotten away with it for such things as, how dare you demand to talk to your lawyer in person because now we will have to put you in solitary confinement. We'll call it quarantine for 2 weeks. It's bad enough what they're suffering from, but to discourage the ability to talk to your attorney, and what we saw as we go in the building, they got a great facility there. The plexiglass, the phones on either side, you could see your attorney, and it wouldn't require anything after the visit other than wiping down the phone and the area where they were. And it
Thank you, guys. So you guys see what's going on right here, right? So we're talking about the fact that if these inmates want to talk to their attorneys, they are now being forced to go into quarantine after. So if you want to meet with your attorney, you got to go spend 2 weeks in solitary confinement. And I don't know if you guys have ever been to jail. I've been there one time for about 17 hours, maybe 2 times for about, the second time I was only there for like 3 hours, but long enough to know that, like, I mean, jail is miserable. And then you talk about like the conditions. They're talking about the jail. Part of the jail was shut down for human right violations. Part of it was. And then this is where they're holding these inmates in these jails where there's like mold growing. And they said there, you'll get into it here, but I mean, this is really messed up, guys. I don't support what happened on January 6th whatsoever. But wait until I don't know if she said it already, but the involvement of the FBI on January 6th is still unknown. And it's looking really sketchy at this point. Were they involved? Did they bring weapons there? I mean, it's pretty crazy when you start diving into this story. And I don't know how much is true or how much is misinformation, but I mean, these are House representatives. These are government officials saying that they have whistleblowers. They have a ton of evidence. I mean, this is scary stuff, guys. Really scary.
And yet they have used this idea, oh, if you're going to talk to your attorney, we're going to have to lock you up in solitary for 14 days. This is the kind of punishment that they have had meted out to them, and it really has to stop. And we know the U.S. Marshal, when they finally had enough, we didn't know that they were going. We didn't know immediately after they went. But they had gotten concerns about the facility. They go in, they do a they're taken in to the area where the other prisoners were held, not the January 6th. And that gave them time to scrub off mold and try to clean up the area where the January 6th inmates were. And they did that. They had enough time to get some of the nastiest parts cleaned up. so that the U.S. Marshal held that the cleaner side of the jail was not adequate, and those 400 people needed to be shipped out to incarceration in Pennsylvania. And then by the time they get over to where the January 6 folks were, it was cleaner, and they let that go. Then after that, before we went over for an inspection, for a tour, they had done some painting and had allowing them 2 hours outside their solitary confinement. One of the older gentlemen there, he's alleged to have had a gun, and I know the Attorney General Garland was either being dishonest or he let us know that he's incompetent. When I asked him, was anybody inside the Capitol found to have had a gun? And he knew the answer, I knew the answer, and yet he said, in fact, well, I'm not sure where it was, but I know there was a gun found. Well, and that's one of the reasons they're keeping this elderly gentleman in jail. You look at his hand, and it's obviously dark, looks like it's going toward gray or black. You know, that's normally leading toward amputation when it gets that bad, but they haven't given him proper medical care. Another inmate had his finger going just sideways at the last joint. He said it was broken by one of the guards, and they won't allow him to get medical care for that. There are just all kinds of things there. The refusal to allow them to have haircuts or shave, they're creating people that look like the Unabomber. And I know from my experience, if a jail facility will not allow an inmate to prepare for court so that he's not brought in looking like a criminal, then that jail facility is going to be sanctioned by the judge that in whose court they're brought. None of those things are happening. We've got one judge, Judge Lambert, that has started to take action, but there's not nearly enough. We need all of the videos that anybody has, but it's the federal government. I don't understand why our speaker is trying to hide evidence while they run around looking for anything that might help them make Republicans look bad. But I do.
Damn, that wasn't the full video. So that was one of them. So you guys got the man. I wish I could find that the full video on that. So that was part one, right? So now you guys want to talk about Cadena for a minute. We can talk about Cadena. So no, I said in my text I sent out to you guys, I said that the worst investment I made was Cadena. For sure, it was hands down, no questions asked. It's from a profit standpoint. Out of all the calls I made, out of all the altcoins I bought, out of all the projects we did research into and took profits in, Cadena was by far my worst investment. It was the one that I've lost the most money on. Doesn't mean I don't believe in Cadena. Doesn't mean I'm not a huge fan of Cadena. And I just sold 8,900 something Cadena, 8,890 or something like that. That my bot was trading me because I had those bots set up all the way down to I think 72 cents. So as far down as it went, 72 cents, my bot bought all the way down from $1 and was trading, buying and selling, but it just kept buying and buying because price kept coming down and I had trailing down on. So I ended up with about 8,900 KDA and I just sold at $1.03. So is it going down? I don't know. It always goes down. That was my thought process, is every time Cadena pumps up, it ends up going even lower than it was before it pumped every single time. So I'm sitting here watching this entire industry and I'm looking at this industry like it is the biggest Ponzi scheme and the most corrupt industry I've ever saw in my life. You know, so like looking at the amount of corruption that has to leave this industry for me to even want to talk about crypto again, it's insane. I mean, I'm all about crypto, but this industry is so corrupt and there's so many big behemoths in this industry that even make FTX look bad. You know, we're talking about Digital Currency Group, which would then take down probably Grayscale Trust, which would then take down ARK Investments, which would then take down Michael Saylor, which would then take down all of these corrupt Ponzi scheme exchanges in here, you know? Yeah, Cadena will go down 20 cents. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know how low it's going to go. And now people are starting to wake up when you guys see that, like how corrupt the crypto media was. And now we know how corrupt the crypto media was. So when I was saying that nobody's talking about Kadena because they can't profit from it like they can these Ponzi schemes, like why would CoinDesk, why would any of these exchanges start teaching people about Kadena? Because once you start learning about blockchain technology and what blockchains need to do and what a blockchain would need to, like how a blockchain would need to be designed, what type of coding language it would need, what type of servers it would need, what type of, is it proof of work? It has to be proof of work. It has to be scalable. It has to be all these things, or you just end up with another centralized version of PayPal or Visa. That's all that Polkadot is. That's all that Ethereum 2 is. Now they can try to say that they're going to do things like, what do they say they're going to do? They're going to, whatever, ZK rollups or whatever Ethereum's trying to push you guys in that direction. Well, guess what MetaMask is now doing? MetaMask is now tracking your IP addresses, plain and simple. So you have this arm called MetaMask, which is supposed to be quote unquote decentralized. What the hell is a decentralized wallet doing tracking your IP addresses? And then you talk about the amount of, like, somebody's got to explain to me how one company like Anderson Horowitz can invest $400 million into something like ApeCoin, and then all of a sudden ApeCoin is valued at $5 billion. And I would love to see the amount of ApeCoin that Anderson Horowitz got for that $400 million investment. I would love to see exactly how much money Anderson Horowitz still has in their portfolio. And I would like to see how much profit they took selling ApeCoin. Because I would really love to see how these big VCs like Anderson Horowitz, ApeCoin would be the perfect example to look into. So every hedge fund in this industry seems like their portfolio is backed with a bunch of shit coins that are absolutely worthless. Like the fact that Shiba has a $5 billion market cap shows you everything that's wrong with this industry. When crypto.com, when the exchanges own 20% of their portfolio in something like Shiba, which means if that one exchange just sold all their Shiba, you're probably talking about Shiba depreciating in value by 50% overnight like that. If maybe even 75%. So if one big exchange like Kronos decides, oh, maybe this Shiba isn't the best thing on our balance sheet, they're going to try to liquidate all that Shiba, and it's going to drive the price so low, and then it's going to trigger a rapid sell-off by every moon boy that ever bought Shiba, and it's going to end up at probably zero. So like everything ERC20 is, the tech just can't support. It's either centralized, everything proof of stake is centralized, and we just seen what happens with centralized projects. So we have like 2 or 5 or 10 or maybe 20 projects in the entire space that are actually able to solve the centralization problem, and the rest that are here are just another version of Visa that's centralized. And it doesn't make your life better. It doesn't make my life better. Like Near Protocol winning isn't going to make any of our lives better. It's not going to make the world better for our kids. And that's where I think we need to get back to in the blockchain industry, is just supporting projects that are actually decentralized and actually make the world a better place. It's like my hopes and dreams of crypto have been shattered. I don't support it anymore. This industry is the most corrupt and dirty, downright savage industry that I've ever seen in my life. So do I want to, like, I'm excited that Kadena's pumping, yeah. But what does that mean? That we just have like 5 more exchanges out there that are going to list Kadena, and then they're going to print fake coins of Kadena out of thin air, and they're going to use those fake coins of Kadena to manipulate the market. Paxos being backed by BUSD being backed by Paxos is very interesting. It's cool to see that there's an independent company out there that's, managing BUSD. They get audited 3 times a month or 3 times a year or something like that. I was looking into it the other day, so it's very interesting. I think it's a good thing that seeing CZ basically give USDT and USDC the boot off of Binance. I thought that was very interesting. I don't like that these centralized stablecoins have all of this power and all of this control. Wait, what's with this about printing fake KDA? Oh, just like FTX printed fake Bitcoin. What's stopping any of these exchanges from printing fake KDA? We know everybody's tracking Bitcoin because it's the big thing. What's stopping these guys from printing their own KDA on exchanges? We kind of already had the feeling that, KuCoin was doing that when it shot up to $28. How many times has KuCoin stopped withdrawals because, they what was the point, This industry is so corrupt right now. And you look at all these hedge funds out there that were, they were all like basically printing up their own coin out of thin air. Then they were driving the price of that up with these corrupt exchanges. And they were taking those coins after they drove the price through the roof. And if they were locked, they were still able to borrow against those locked coins because they're collateral, right? So like, it looks like what FTX was able to do is like, if you had a coin, even though your coins were locked, they were still letting you borrow against those. Yep. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on KDA. Love KDA. Got 32,000 in a cold storage wallet that I never plan to sell. I'll ride it all the way down to zero, you know, because it's either this industry wins and decentralization wins and Bitcoin and Qanon are the future of this industry, or the governments have destroyed it so much that people like me don't even believe in it anymore. I believe in the technology. I understand how powerful the technology can be, but until we root out the corruption in this industry, I don't really know what type of future there is for crypto. Yep. The best info in the media is a solo YouTube channel. At least Tucker is talking about it on a big news network. How these people don't know, and Ryan knew way before this happened. We all did. I mean, we all knew. It was literally like they were launching scam coins, doing nothing but trying to destroy this industry. Yep. Yeah, you know, CZ is covering the people. CZ's been doing a really good job at helping expose the truth, even if it makes him look bad. I know he's getting attacked by everybody, but you know, seeing CZ talk about bailing out things like, and that's the biggest red flag. You know, you have to really Cardano-based regulated stablecoin USDA. I don't trust any of these stablecoins. Crypto Mario. Oh yeah, 0x Doctor. I've lost all hope. Not even all hope, just like until this entire industry goes, like we don't need the hedge funds. We don't need the institutional investors. They need crypto. I was perfectly fine with a $3,000 Bitcoin. I was perfectly fine with a $20,000 Bitcoin. I was perfectly fine with a $30,000 Bitcoin. Like I don't need Bitcoin to go to $500 billion, right? I just need a place to park my wealth that's not fiat. So I think that when we see Coinbase, like there was what, $1.5 billion left Coinbase in the last 24 hours. That was on Friday, I think. Yeah, I only trust Bitcoin. No doubt. Because Bitcoin's going to win no matter what. So now let me show you this one was even more crazy when you start talking about the taxes that they're trying to impose on us. I couldn't believe that these guys, like I watched this press conference last night and was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I can't believe we actually have government officials and politicians and everybody screaming from the top of their lungs like this can't continue. I mean, this one had me shaking. Like I was like scared last night, like watching in bed. I was like, I felt like I was cold. Like it was so disturbing. It was like I was watching a horror movie or something. Like this is really America. This is what our politicians are trying to do to us. And the news wants to act like they don't, like they want to ask these softball questions that like, so scary, man. This is the most scariest thing out of all of it right here. When you have central bankers saying that this shit is messed up, it's really messed up. And it's like, it looks like a 1920s camera. Like, I don't know who records this or where this comes from, but.
Senator Scott.
Thinking about the proposal this morning in my banking hearing with the Assistant Secretary of the Treasury and asking the question about this very concept of finding a way to have access into nearly every banking account in America. His response was the goal is to make sure that folks, millionaires and billionaires, are not finding their way around paying the taxes that they owe. My response was to shake my head because I could not imagine how it is that $600 transactions flows could literally help us find folks who are millionaires and billionaires cheating on their taxes. More importantly, I think about the fact that there are 7 million Americans who are unbanked and maybe a little suspicious of the government. This proposal will keep those good Americans from being able to engage and get involved in the financial systems of our country. I can't think of anything more wrong directed than this proposal. And there's a lot of targets within this reconciliation package, this taxing and spending package to target. This one puts burdens on working class Americans, hardworking, paycheck to paycheck Americans, who will now have more to fear from the IRS. 3 letters no American household wants to see in their mailboxes. IRS. It sends shivers down the spine. So for those Americans who are concerned that somehow the government is too big, too onerous, too burdensome, this only adds more fuel to that fire. This is not only a bad direction, it's wrong for everyday working class, paycheck to paycheck Americans who are shaking their head. Is there not more for Washington to focus on?
Senator Kennedy.
Thanks, Mike. Whether it's $600 or $10,000, under this proposal, the intimate financial details of everyone in this room, of at a minimum of every American who has a job, will be turned over on a daily basis to the IRS. What could possibly go wrong? Republicans aren't perfect, but this stuff is crazy. President Xi would be proud. Now, Secretary Yellen, who's one of the leading proponents of this squid-brained idea, says we need to do it to catch rich tax cheats. She knows better than that. Why throw the net so wide? This proposal, like a lot of proposals in my Democratic friend's bill, is not about public policy, and it's not about taxes. It's about control. There are too many people in charge right now in Washington, D.C., who just don't trust Americans to know what's best for themselves. They just don't trust Americans to make decisions for themselves. Their attitude seems to be, do what you're told. Just do what you're told, and if you do that, we might let you eat meat occasionally. This is another step in that direction. And I hope my Democratic friends rethink this idea.
And lastly, but not least, Senator Kramer.
Could be least, too. You never know. Well, it's hard to improve on what Senator Kennedy just said, but I'm going to do my best to at least add to it. Obviously, I've heard from bankers, community bankers and credit union presidents who are concerned about this. But I have literally heard from thousands of North Dakotans who bank with great concern. And in many cases, it's a phone call from somebody who just wants to know if it's true. And if it's true, do I know about it? They're so frightened for very good reasons, for all the reasons you've heard. I mean, we are talking about some of the most private of information being shared, turning bank presidents, bankers, community bankers, credit union lenders, and tellers into spies for the IRS. It sends shivers. But here's what bothers me so much. It shouldn't, should surprise us, but it doesn't, that this administration, who has gone from incremental steps towards socialism to vast leaps to socialism. I mean, Marx is on our doorstep right now. It shouldn't surprise.
Hey guys, can you guys tell me how many people does it show that are in this stream right now, and how many likes are there? Remind me to ask that at the end of the video, because I want to see, because it's sometimes like these streams end and it's almost like I'm losing views. I don't get it. So I want to make sure I ask that at the end of the stream. Can you guys type in the chat how many people are watching this right now? What does it show on your screen? Maybe refresh it.
Us that they've got the boldness to do this. But here's what bothers me as much as anything. This proposal is built on a premise that there are a bunch of guilty people out there. There's a presumption of guilt. Why else would you need more agents to go after people that buy a car? And that's bothersome. The premise of that in our free system is bothersome to me. But I think one of the craziest parts of the whole thing, even if for a moment you were going to buy into the notion that there are a whole bunch of people not paying their fair share. That's the other word. I came from the same banking hearing that several of the others came from. Billionaires just aren't paying their fair share. So we have to get all of the transaction information from everybody because they're not paying their fair share. This proposal doesn't even accomplish what they claim they want to accomplish by the proposal. So what is the real motive? I think it gets back to that, what I said earlier. They've always been about incremental steps toward socialism, and now they've decided to take a great big leap while they hold all three levers of power in this town. And we, as Republicans, will do everything we can to stop them.
Thank you. Before we throw it open for questions, I just want to make two other points that my colleagues have prompted me to think about. First of all, we got some information from the Treasury Department today, which you probably all got too, saying, well, wait a minute, we're not going to audit anybody who makes less than $400,000. I think they sent that out because they heard we were having this press conference. But that's all they did. They just said, well, we're not going to go after anybody who makes less than $400,000. Well, the Greene book, which lays out this proposal, in addition to the details you've already heard about, says very specifically that the Secretary, meaning the Secretary of Treasury, will be given broad authority to issue regulations necessary to implement this proposal, which says that the IRS will be given broad rulemaking authority to get the data it wants. Now, the IRS, in the very thing they sent out today, trying to say, well, we aren't going to go after anybody who makes less than $400,000, also said, you know, we already have the paycheck information on folks, and we already have the interest income information on folks, but we need the rest. That's the point of all this. Why did they start out at $600? That's not to get the wealthy. That's to get everybody. It's to create a total dragnet. And I just want to conclude with the data that Senator Thune referenced generally. If you just, we asked Joint Tax to look at this and tell us what the distributional effect of raising all these hundreds of billions of dollars that this proposal proposes to do is. And Joint Tax said, you know, they haven't even put out enough details for us to give you a specific answer, but if you look at the tax code and see where it is that there is the available money that's not being reported, it's primarily in Schedule C and Schedule E. That picks up all small businesses, all individuals, everybody. And so they said, we will analyze the tax gap in Schedules C and E and tell you where it looks like the lost revenue is to be found. And when they did that, they found that it was mostly in those making less than $500,000. Over 50% of it is those making less than $50,000. Another 21%, I got to get my glasses out here. Another 21% is those making between $50,000 and $100,000. Another 12% is those making between $100,000 and $2,000, and another 6% is those making $200,000 to $500,000. And when you get to those making $500,000, not $400,000, but $500,000 or more, that only accounts for 4% to 9% of the expected recoveries that can come from analyzing these schedules. So I don't know what the IRS is trying to say here, but you know, if they are really not going to go after those who make less than $400,000, then why don't they, instead of saying, well, we'll raise the limit to $1,000 for everybody, why don't they just put a ban in there that bans the IRS from snooping in the accounts of people who make less than $400,000? That's a question I think that should be asked of the sponsors of this approach. Anyway, with that, I've talked through all my. I got another colleague here. You can. Oh, we got another one, Kennedy. So you guys can help me answer questions if there are questions. Yes.
I have two questions. The first is, thank you for doing this. The first question is, do Republicans believe that the tax gap is a problem? And how would you propose then ensuring that the wealthy pay the taxes that they owe? And the second question is, if we were to put that ban in the rule, would you then support it?
I wouldn't support this bill if they put that ban in there because this bill it still gives the IRS the authority to go in and snoop in every single account of anybody who makes any more than $10,000 worth of transactions, which, as I indicated in my first remarks, is the average American family has $61,000 of transactions a year. It's going to cover everybody. Every single solitary small business that you can think of has more than 100,000, probably as much as 1 million or more of transactions, even though the net revenue is going to be rather small. Now, with regard to the tax gap, I can only speak for myself. I believe there is a tax gap. I don't believe it's what they're saying it is. I believe that what they are saying it is might be trying to pull in those who are not paying as much in taxes as they would like to see them pay, but who are legally following the tax code. So there's all kinds of discussion about that. But there are things that we could do to address the tax gap. I don't think creating this dragnet is the way to approach it. Were you coming up to answer anything?
Yeah, no, because I thought that was a really good question. I used to collect taxes for the state of Louisiana. I had my title was like Secretary of the Department of Revenue or something, but I was a tax collector. Of course there's a tax gap. Duh. I mean, we have a voluntary system. And when we first imposed an income tax in America, and the constitutionality of it was litigated, I think our lawmakers in our judicial branch decided, well, we need to strike a balance here between people's privacy. I'm not sure they used the word privacy then, but between people's privacy and public policy of catching people who cheat. And the way you do that is through audits. And the IRS, look, it's an extraordinarily inefficient agency. Any of you have a tax question? Go call the IRS this afternoon. See what happens. You can't even get them on the phone. I mean, it's ludicrous. What are they going to do with all this data? The second point I want to make, I don't think you can understate the risk that this data could leak. I mean, we just had an instance. Some of my colleagues talked about it, where financial data of taxpayers was leaked, I think, by the IRS. And the IRS said they'd get to the bottom of it. Have you heard anything? Have y'all asked? I haven't. And you know what? We won't. And we remember what happened with Lois Lerner. You know, it just depends on what kind of, I've talked too long. It depends on what kind of state you want to live in. Do you folks really want to live in a state where the government knows every one of the intimate details of your life, including finances? If you do, I hear China's beautiful this time of year.
Mic drop. You guys hear that one? Like, look at him. We have Kennedy, right, on here. Like they're even trying to, like, you hear the press asking their one-directional questions, right? And you hear Senator Kennedy's like, listen to what you guys are asking. Like, literally listen to the follow-up questions you guys are asking. I don't know one American, not one, Republican or Democrat, that wants this to happen. We are on the verge of a financial crisis. The Federal Reserve is out of money. Taxpayers are already paying $35 billion estimated this year to pay the reverse repo, where the Fed's just giving out money to the biggest institutions in the world, right? And it's not the Republicans are scared the IRS is coming for this. This is for the people. right? Nothing about Republicans or Democrats. This is about totalitarian control, period. There is no left or right or anything on this subject. This is American, period. This is something that the American people do not want. This is giving a government way too much power so that you can't make choices. That's what they think we're stupid. They literally think we're retarded, and they think that we can't make decisions for ourselves. That's how they are treating us right now. You know, and FTX is just the tip of the iceberg. When I say that this thing's going to go on probably for 2 to 3 years, and I doubt that we ever get answers to 90% of the questions we want, but this can't happen. This cannot happen. We need to stop allowing this to happen. Like I'm losing it, man. I don't know. I feel like I need a tinfoil hat here, but this is just my opinion. Nothing is fact. Everybody's always innocent till proven guilty, but this has to stop, right? And you can see there's only a few people. I mean, like in this whole stream, there's only a few people that jumped in here, and they're probably their bots, right? Like I don't even think they're real people at this point, because no real person outside of somebody that doesn't live in the United States actually understands. Like this might happen in your guys' countries, but this does not happen in America, right? And then, then Marshman, and then you start talking about what that video that's going viral. I can't even say the name of it. Too big to fail must stop. 100%. Crypto Beehive. There should be no. Too big to fail means that your business was running inefficient. They were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. They were taking out loans. They were running a horrible, horrible business. And because they owe so much money to these banks, the banks bail them out. And it just pushes the puck down the road. So until we start, really focusing on what's actually happening and giving a bigger voice to it, this is the last thing I want to be doing is playing these videos on my stream. The absolute last. I know it's horrible for the channel. I know most people don't want to hear it. But somebody's got to speak up. Somebody's got to say something, When we're talking about human rights violations, we got to stick up for what's right, man. I would be doing this for anybody. Even if the Republicans were doing this to Democrats, I would be saying the exact same thing. It doesn't matter to me who's all that matters is that they're trying to force 88,000 IRS agents with weapons to go door to door. And the Democrats can't even figure out how to make postage stamps priced right so that they can be profitable. Like, how does the United States Post Office lose money on postage stamps? They can't even get the post office right. They're like, what, 2 years behind on taxes right now on audits? And now they want to put another 88,000 agents out there to go through every penny that you spend under $600 when they could easily ban it. And that's what they're going to get to next year. They're going to talk about that if they're not going to go after Americans that make less than $400,000 a year, which they're claiming they're not, then let's put a ban in there on it, right? Let's completely ban it, because if they're not going to do that, then they do not need the right to, and they don't deserve the right to.
I said too much. I'm sorry. I'm leaving. You did a good job, Grapo.
A lot of hands here. I'm going to start here, and then we'll rotate back and forth.
Just to follow up on that, you guys both acknowledge that the tax gap is an issue to some extent. Is it an issue big enough worth addressing? If so, sort of what are Republicans' ideas about how to go about collecting taxes that are legally owed?
Well, first of all, yes, it's big enough that we ought to look at it, but we shouldn't create this kind of phenomenal dragnet in order to do so. So what should we do? That's a tough question to answer. A lot of the changes that we need to make probably are changes to the current law. A lot of the things that some of my colleagues claim are loopholes are maybe loopholes in the sense that the law allows something to happen that it shouldn't allow to happen, so deductions or credits or what have you. But I think that there can be corrections in the law if there are loopholes that are identified. Secondly, Senator Kennedy just referenced not being able to contact the IRS on the telephone. I mean, that's literally true. They don't answer the phones anymore. They don't have technology that allows them to do taxpayer service, that allows honest taxpayers to understand what they need to do to pay their taxes. And all of the analysts tell us that if we can just give adequate taxpayer service and get the IRS stepped back up to where it can provide service on the existing tax code, that will generate greater compliance and greater revenue to the Treasury. And I'm sure there are a number of other ideas. But the idea to just create a dragnet like this is not the right one. Now here?
Well, Democrats have said that this proposal was also to go after tax evaders. So do Republicans not see eye to eye on that message, or do you think that Democrats have an ulterior motive for this proposal?
Well, first of all, again, I can only speak for me, but I don't think there's any Republican who would say they don't think that the IRS should be able to identify tax evaders and collect the taxes that are being evaded. The question is, do you need to create a mechanism where the people of America have to give up their privacy on all of their financial transactions in order to do so? And so there's got to be some ground in the middle. We do need to be able to have more effective tax compliance, but we don't need to do it this way. Yes.
We know that the idea of moving the threshold up to $10,000, this comes after pushback from all of you, and we've heard from Americans who've been calling your banks, et cetera. Do you think that there's hope here for further pushing this up or getting rid of it altogether? What's your
Well, I think
thoughts on that?
I think the fact that you see the Treasury Department putting out a statement today saying we won't do it, and the fact that you see all of these comments coming forward and saying, okay, we'll increase the threshold from 600 to 10,000. My first comment on that is, why did they start at $600? And I believe the answer to that is because they wanted to go after all of the people on Schedule C and Schedule E and collect the money from them. Then they got caught at this, and they said, well, we're not going to do that. But they haven't, all they've said in response to we're not going to do that is, we'll agree to let it go up to 10,000. To answer that question, I again refer back to my data on what the average American family receives and spends in a year. That still covers virtually all of them. But I had a roundtable on this in Idaho last week. And in that roundtable, there were people from all different parts of the economy. But one of the small business owners who was at that roundtable made a point that
That was where he's going to say, don't ban it. I don't know why these keep getting cut off like that. It's crazy to me. But check this out, guys. Like, look at this right here. This stream's saying that I got.
Is that what we're talking about? But let's talk about the aid to Ukraine. Here in the news, we're just finding out about the situation with FTX and the cryptocurrency. So is American people's taxpayer dollars going to fund aid in Ukraine, but yet it's really funding something else that's happening, maybe ending up in Democrat donors' pockets? Was that helping Democrat campaigns? Was that helping Democrat candidates get elected? $8.9 billion is for the humanitarian assistance, including emergency food and assistance for Ukraine and Ukrainian refugees in the region and for other countries.
Like, look at this. It's saying that just a minute ago, now it obviously changed, but it was saying I had 59 concurrent viewers here, and then it was saying I had 78 up here. It's like this stream is so, it's like anytime you try to give any type of media attention to what's going on here, I don't understand why they're trying so hard to stop. I mean, this isn't like some conspiracy theory stuff. This is our Congress, men and women over here saying, hey guys, there's something wrong with this system. And a majority of Americans want to know what's going on.
Directly impacted by the conflict. Again, what other countries? And how much money went to the other countries? And what organizations are involved? Who runs these organizations? And why did they get the contracts? $11.8 billion in other assistance, including for direct budget support to Ukraine and development aid and other assistance to Ukraine and other affected countries. What development aid? What assistance? Who is running this? These are all the questions the American people have. Now, here, think about it like this. Separately from congressional appropriations, the Biden administration has already committed $17.6 billion in security assistance directly to Ukraine since the start of the war just this year. It's been about 10 months. The Biden administration is also authorized.
So look at it right now. Now it's saying that I have 69 viewers in here and I have 54 viewers in here. What is it? I don't know. What does it show on your guys' side? I can't believe this, man. I have 65 likes and 68 viewers. Funky, man. Really funky. So with Kadena, we'll end it up here on Kadena. We can talk some crypto for a while. When it comes to, hold on, let me fix my volume. There we go. Now, am I echoing here? Does it echo when I put music on this one?